Hello, children. Today I will read Jack and the Beanstalk. There was once a poor widow who had an only son named Jack and an old cow whose name was Bluebell. For many years, Jack and his mother just managed to make a living by selling Bluebell's milk at the market. But one morning, Bluebell gave them no milk and they had nothing else to sell. What on earth shall we do now? Sobbed Jack's mother, staring into the empty milk pail. Oh, don't worry, mother, said Jack as cheerfully as he could. I'm sure I can get a job or something. We'll be all right. But you've tried that before, said his mother, and you know there's no work around here. We'll just have to sell Bluebell at the market and use the money to start a little shop. Sadly, Jack agreed. It was the only thing they could do. He took the old cow's halter in his hand and led her slowly along the lane towards the market. Make sure you get a good price for her, called his mother. Jack hadn't gone far when he met a funny-looking old man wearing a long green cloak. Good morning, Jack, said the man. Good morning, said Jack, surprised that the stranger knew his name. And where are you off to this fine morning? Asked the man. Just off to market to sell our cow, said Jack. Well, you look like the right sort of young man to sell a cow for a good price, said the man. I expect you know how many beans makes 5. I do, said Jack. 2 in each hand and 1 in your mouth. Indeed, chuckled the man, holding out his hand. And here are those 5 beans. As you are so clever, you don't mind exchanging your cow for them, will you? Doesn't seem like a very good idea, said Jack, peering at the 5 small beans nestling in the man's cupped hand. I think I'd better see how things go at the market. Oh, but you don't understand, said the old man, stepping into the path in front of Jack to bar his way. You see, these are magic beans. If you plant them in the evening, by morning they can grow right up past the cloud and into the sky. Really? Said Jack. Really, said the man. And if I'm not telling the truth, you can have your cow back. Without thinking twice, Jack handed Bluebell over, pocketed the beans, and ran back home. There he saw his mother waiting by the gate. Did you get a good price? She called when she saw her son returning without Bluebell. Oh yes, called Jack brightly. You'll never guess. 5 pounds? Said his mother with a big grin on her face. No, said Jack. 10 pounds, laughed his mother. No, said Jack. It can't be 20, squealed his mother, jumping up and down in delight. No, said Jack, I got these. And he held out his hand so his mother could see the 5 beans. She just stared at his open hand in bewilderment. They are magic, explained Jack. You see, you plant them in the evening and in the morning. What? Shrieked his mother. What have you done, you foolish boy? You have given away our cow for 5 shriveled up beans? You must be crazy. These, she shouted, grabbing the beans from his hand, are completely worthless. And she threw the beans onto the ground in disgust. But, mumbled Jack, No buts, yelled his mother. Just go straight to bed. There's nothing to eat, and I can't believe what you've done. Jack scurried into the house and up to his little room, where he threw himself down on the bed and cried himself to sleep. When Jack woke up, his room was still dark. It must be very early, he thought, and the sun's not up. But when he went over to the window and looked out, he could hardly believe his eyes. The outside of the window was almost covered by the biggest, thickest, greenest leaves he had ever seen in his life. The beans his mother had tossed so furiously onto the ground had grown overnight into an enormous beanstalk that reached up into the sky. It was just as the old man had said. Jack wasted no time. He threw on his clothes, forced open the window, eased himself out through the leaves, and grabbed hold of the huge stalk. Then he started to climb up, hand over hand, leaf by leaf. He climbed and he climbed and he climbed. Up past the tallest trees, up past flocks of surprised birds, up through the layer after layer of cloud, and on into the sky. When at last, puffing and panting for breath, he reached the very top, he saw a long, white road stretching far into the distance. Jack marched quickly along the road until he saw a massive house reaching even further into the sky. On the doorstep stood an immensely tall woman. "Hello," called Jack politely. "I don't suppose you'd be so kind as to give me some breakfast? You see, I haven't eaten for—" "You will be breakfast in a minute," barked the woman. "My husband eats boys like you on toast. You'd better get going before he catches you. He'll be down any moment." "Oh, please, just a little piece of bread," pleaded Jack. "I really am starving." "Quickly then," said the tall woman, taking pity on him. "I'll see what I can find." And she hurried him through the door, down an enormous echoing passageway, and into the cavernous kitchen. There, she lifted him onto the edge of the table and gave him a huge hunk of bread and pieces of cheese. Jack was hungrily gobbling down the food when he heard a thunderous pounding noise coming from above. The plates on the dresser rattled as the whole house shook. Thud, thud, thud. "Oh no, it's my old man," whispered the woman. "Quick, you must hide." She picked Jack up and bundled him onto the oven. At the same moment, a huge, hairy giant strode into the room, chanting, "Phew, fee, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." "I smell boy," roared the giant. "Is it fresh boy for breakfast?" "Oh, no, no, dear," said the giant's wife. "I haven't made your breakfast yet. Maybe you can smell the leftovers from yesterday. That boy you enjoyed so much for your supper. Why don't you go and have a shave? By the time you come back, I'll have your breakfast ready." So the giant thudded out of the kitchen and back upstairs. Jack was about to climb out of the oven and escape when the woman said in a loud whisper, "No, don't go. It's not safe yet. Wait till after he's had his breakfast. Then he has a nap and you can sneak out." A few minutes later, the giant thumped his way back into the kitchen and devoured an enormous breakfast. Then he called to his wife, Can you bring me my little brown hen? You know, the one that lays the special eggs. Of course, dear, said his wife. Jack peered through a crack, watching carefully as the giant took the little brown hen lovingly from his wife's hands and set it down gently on the table. Lay, 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 little hen, cooed the giant, tenderly stroking the hen's back. The hen squawked loudly and ruffled her feathers. Jack watched in amazement as a glistening golden egg rolled across the table. The giant reached out, grabbed the egg, and thrust it deep into his pocket. Then he made himself comfortable in his chair by the fire and was soon snoring so loudly the whole house started shaking again. Seeing his chance to escape, Jack jumped out of the oven, snatched up the hen, raced out of the door, and hurried out of the house. But then he heard a familiar noise behind him. Thud, thud, thud! The giant had woken up. Where's my hen? He bellowed as he lumbered out of the door and thundered along the road after Jack. Fee, fee, phew, foom! I smell the bird of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. The giant's booming chant was ringing in Jack's ears when he reached the top of the beanstalk. He leaped onto the nearest leaf and clambered down as fast as he could with the hen under his arm. Down and down and down he climbed. But when he reached the top of the clouds, the beanstalk began to shake and sway. The giant was climbing down after him. Faster and faster Jack climbed. Closer and closer came the giant. Now Jack was nearly level with the treetops. Mother, mother, he yelled, get the hatchet! Jack's mother came rushing out, clutching their old hatchet. She screamed in terror when he saw one of the giant's enormous hairy hands emerging from the clouds. Jack jumped onto the ground, thrust the hen into his mother's hands, seized the tool, and started to chop wildly at the beanstalk. Chop, chop, chop went Jack. Thud, thud, thud went the giant. Jack swung his arms high in the air and gave the beanstalk one last enormous chop. The giant felt the beanstalk quiver as it began to topple over. Crash! The huge beanstalk and the giant clinging to it smashed onto the ground. And that was the end of the fearsome old giant. But for Jack and his mother, it was a brand new start. The little brown hen was the answer to their prayers. All they had to do was to say, lay, 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 little hen, and they had a gleaming golden egg to sell. With the money from selling the eggs, they bought a herd of cows, a flock of sheep, a fine young horse, some stylish new clothes, and as much food as they needed. They lived happily in their cottage for many years, and they were never bothered by boy eating giants again. That's all for today. Thank you for listening.